All right, so I'm back. Oh, my hair is like wild. I don't know what's going on here. All right, so I'm melting today, and it's not even hot, but I guess when you're a wicked witch, it doesn't really matter. So, what is up with my hair? I don't know. No, it's so crazy and stuff. Okay, so we're gonna make this work. Okay, so I'm back, and we're reviewing yet another book, and this time it's a classic of American literature, one that has stuck around for 100 years, which I know for people that don't live in America, maybe like, oh my gosh, 100 years. We have like, you know, crap tons of stuff that's way over 100 years old, but, you know, like, we're a young country. We apologize. Don't listen to me. So this time it's Upton Sinclair's The Jungle. Now, I never really wanted to read this book, mostly because everyone was like, oh, it's so terrible, and it's so awful, and it was about this, this, and this, and they talked about it so much that I basically knew the story. I knew what it was going to be about, and I didn't feel the urge to go through this and actually read it. So I was like, oh, I won't read it. What is happening here? Can we fix this? Can somebody, like, get me, like, I don't know, hairspray? This isn't about my hair. It's about literature. The Jungle. Everybody's always talked about The Jungle. And I didn't want to read it. But everyone said, hey, do it. So I succumbed to peer pressure. And I did. Finally. Which is probably for the better, because if I had read the book when I was, I don't know, in high school or something, I probably would have been like, this is boring. I never want to read this again. 1 star. You know, like, but it's worthy of 4. I'll give it 4. And the reason I won't give it 5, I'll talk about. It's a classic. Nearly everyone and their mother knows about Upton Sinclair's The Jungle. And I suppose, in my defense, it probably wasn't the greatest idea to go from the satirical work of Kurt Vonnegut to the depressingly realistic work of Sinclair. But it is what it is, so it goes. And I read it. So truly, one does not read this book for the story, since Sinclair seems... Here's that reason why it's only 4 stars for me. Sinclair seems unable to make you feel against your will for the characters inside the book. You know, you read a story, you read a book, and you start feeling for these characters. You start thinking that, like, they're your best friends. You know, this is my buddy. And you don't feel that for the characters in his book. I could not, for the life of me, feel much sympathy for the individual, but only the collective masses of the early 1900s, which I do suppose was Sinclair's goal. You know, like, you can feel bad for a person, but it's more important that you have to feel bad for the multitudes of people that were in these really terrible conditions in the 1900s. But for me, it really, like, kind of took away from the story, because I couldn't really feel for the characters. But despite all that, what is moving, what is emotionally charged, is the bleak, terribly realistic view of Chicago. The book was named well for the details it has to offer. Not only does Sinclair investigate the slaughterhouses, but in Chicago, but how every high-end gold-lined pocket has its meandering tendrils, its phalanges, phalanges, around every corporation in the city. I mean, it's just everything is interlocked and interlaced with the elite. And to me, living in this century, you know, I can relate to that. A lot of people can, because there is an elite, and we are very aware of the elite. Actually, just last summer, the other 99 occurred, you know, taking over Wall Street in New York City and around the world. You know, it was everywhere. The elite, to me, is very apparent in our time in 2012, because there are a lot of problems with the American country, and it seems like we haven't really learned from Sinclair, and we haven't really learned from the people that wrote and lived in the times that I'm talking about, what Sinclair is talking about. In the 1900s, early 1900s Chicago, and in the cities around America, the big cities, and their production, the elite had their hands in everything, from buying houses to going into saloons to drink one's sorrows away, to jail, to work, and to the pain that everything eventually dishes out. I mean, it's this overwhelming cloud cover of elite control. And you really feel that, and you really understand it, especially if you're trying to find a job, or if you don't have health insurance, or if you can't pay to support yourself or your children or your family or whoever it is that you're trying to support, or if you're trying to find a job. It's something that can speak to us. There is a sympathy in the jungle and in Sinclair's book for the millions of workers that slaved day in and day out for what was just a few pennies to maybe buy some food for their starving children or for themselves. And it's painful to read, because you know that it's still happening. It's not the same conditions. There's much that has changed, but there's a lot that can still be tied into what we see today. So I have to respect the book for what it did for the United States, because it did invoke a change. It did invoke a willingness to meet the workers' needs. It opened the eyes of ignorance to what was really happening in cities across this country, to get things to move, to shift. And it's just one of those great moments when you know that literature really does make a difference. But I certainly cannot read this for the connection with the characters. It does not get me from here to the pages in the book. Sitting next to the main characters and sitting and eating with them their stale bread. I don't have that sense of emotional connection. So if you are going to read the book, you really want to read it as like historical fiction. It's somewhat dry. It's somewhat difficult to get through. But it is a great door to what was and what is today. And oh, my phone is reminding me to do something. Thank you, phone. It's definitely a 4-star book for me. Great classic American literature, great novel, good story for the most part. It's just difficult to kind of, feel for your buddy in the book. But worth the read. Give it the time of day. Go ahead and put it on your shelf. And enjoy it. And so that's me. Hi, I'm Diane. I review books, and I we'll see you next time. All right, thank you. Phalanges.